a lot of myths and assumptions about posture, which aren't true. And the first one is that having this perfect rigid posture is what we should be aiming for.
Welcome to the Sacred Arts channel, where we discuss a variety of different paths. If you're seeking ways to improve your posture and stand taller, we have a treat for you today. Today, we have Aesha Tahir. She is a human movement specialist for busy desk-bound professionals. She's on a mission to help desk-bound teams discover wellness through better posture by helping them unlock the door to improved health, better breathing, faster digestion, better mood, and self-confidence by providing posture education and coaching. She is also the owner of Tone and Strengthen, a virtual fitness solution platform where people can experience the joy of movement and become better versions of themselves from the comfort of their home. Her book, Unhunched, about health work posture is now out and available. Welcome, Aesha.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Jessie.
Of course. Thank you. I am super interested in this topic because, like I mentioned before, it's something that I constantly strive to improve. And, just having better posture, just opens you up and it allows you to be a lot more confident. And also it helps your back. Can you tell us a little bit about how does proper posture impact not just our physical health, but also our mental well-being, breathing, and, like you mentioned, even digestion?
Yeah, I love that how you explain that you always strive for an open posture because you know that it does lead to better or higher confidence. And when we look at it, and a lot of my clients come to me, they always are like, okay, we know that the poor posture leads to unhealthy movement patterns. It can result in head, neck, shoulder, back pain. We all expect that. But what we don't expect is that poor posture can also negatively impact our circulation, breathing, our nervous system, and our digestion, and even mental health. So how does that happen? And that's what my book addresses as well. But let's take just a snapshot of it here is that when we are hunched over, what we are necessarily doing is compressing our internal organs, which includes our lungs and our gastrointestinal tract. In a seated position, our lung capacity reduces by up to 30%. So your oxygen consumption capacity reduces by up to 30%. So your intake of oxygen drops down by 30%. And that's pretty significant if we look at it. And our stomach cannot digest food effectively because the movements that the stomach has after the meal, those peristalsis cannot happen effectively, which leads to slower metabolic rate. And what we see in the patients, and I see in my clients, is that people who have a hunched over posture, normally they also store a lot of fat around their abdominal region. And the reason is because, well, when you're hunched over, you're compressing your stomach especially, and then also intestines and all the other organs associated with digestion. And the most surprising link that people find is between posture and mental health. And for that, I know you work with Reiki and healing people. And what we see is people with depression tend to have a more closed, rounded shoulder posture. People who are not watching the video, I'm kind of exaggerating my posture here. So you have this rounded shoulder posture and we're often looking down, right? And which we do all day sitting at our desks. We are doing exactly that. We are closing our chest, right? We have this rounded shoulder posture because we are typing, reaching for our keyboards. And then we're looking down, sometimes because our screens are not adjusted properly. And sometimes our keyboard is way down and we want to take a look at it while we are typing. So, but what does that say about our behavior? That we're trying to protect our heart chakra or our main energy center.
Mm.
And so now that means that we have trauma and we are, afraid to open up and show ourselves. And that's one aspect. Then scientists have been exploring how posture affects our thinking process, like how we are thinking with our brains. So there has been a significant research study that was done in 2009 on Ohio State students. And the students were asked to either like sit up straight with an open chest and an upright posture, or sit hunched over with their gaze down and fill out job applications. And they had to list 3 positive and 3 negative personality traits that they thought would contribute to their job satisfaction and professional performance. So students in the unhunched postures believed in the positive traits they wrote on the job application, and they actually wrote more positive traits, whereas those in a hunched over stance didn't trust their ability to perform at the job. And as a result, students in the unhunched postures landed more jobs.
Wow.
So our posture dictates our beliefs about ourselves, our abilities, and our thoughts. So upright position makes it easier to believe in our own abilities. And this is how it empowers us with an optimistic belief in our abilities. So these are a few ways you can see how posture impacts us. And I mean, this goes beyond, of course.
Yeah.
But this is just a little bit of a taste of all the things that are happening within our body when we are here, which means that we have a rounded, closed posture. And I'm talking just about upper body, but of course it flows down to the rest of your body too.
I feel like I had so many aha moments in this explanation. You had so much insight into this because as you were describing, not having enough airflow and the digestion portion of that, it makes a lot of sense because when I first started my own journey in healing myself, I used to do like a lot of breath work. I still do a lot of breath work, but before it was so hard and I would literally have to be like, I need to like adjust myself. And you're right. I never put that together, but it was all around my posture. And the more upright that I am, the more airflow that I have. And probably a little bit too much TMI for my listeners, but I've always kind of suffered with constipation and like digestion, but now I feel a lot more regular because my posture has improved due to, me trying to do a lot of breath work and, unhunch myself, if you will, to take a little bit from your book. In terms of, releasing pain from my back. And I can so identify with the depression and this motion of like hunching over to protect our hearts and kind of like dealing with some of that trauma, how much we kind of light up, how much our posture changes when we do heal ourselves from that aspect. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think you brought up a very good point about breathing and the posture connection, because investigating your breathing mechanics is so important in order to understand how your breath impacts your posture. And I always guide my clients through this exercise. So if you are driving, just make sure that, you stop on the side of the road while listening to this podcast, or you can do this later. This is a simple exercise that you can do by lying down with your back on the floor, with your knees bent and hips soft, and rest one hand on your belly and one on your chest, and breathe in and out the way you regularly do. So don't overemphasize and, don't try to push your breathing too much, and see which hand feels the movement. Take a note of that. If the hand on your belly rises more than the hand on your chest, then kudos, you're using your core muscles for breathing. And what you're doing is, because your diaphragm, which is our basic breathing muscle, it's gonna expand every time fully, and it's gonna massage our spinal cord. But if your hand on the chest is rising more, which is mostly happening for us desk-bound professionals because we have this closed posture, then we are taking short, shallow breaths most of the time. And these shallow breaths, you're now using your muscles, which are not supposed to be used for breathing as much, which are the shoulders and chest muscles instead of the abdominal muscles, which we want to use ideally. So proper breathing is really actually the first step towards easing tension in our upper body and finding our natural and relaxed posture, because it elongates the spine, it increases the space between the joints, it reinforces the spine's natural curves.
Oh, that's such an incredible call out there, because it is so daunting as to how many of us do have a bit of a shallow breath. I never noticed that. And to the point where I used to stop breathing altogether. Like if I was dealing with something stressful at work, I would literally stop breathing and then later on wonder why I was having a headache or having all these pain issues. So like I love this call out to noticing how you're breathing. And for me, it was really hard to breathe through my diaphragm. It was really hard at the beginning to like let all of that air flow into the bottom of my belly. But the more and more I practiced, the easier it got. And now it like all flows together. And I could definitely notice when I'm shallow breathing.
Yeah, it's a habit, right?
Mhm.
Everything that we do is a habit. Even the hunched over posture, we develop it over time because that's how we have learned to work with technology. But and I think embracing technology is very important. You know, it's important for us to be productive. It's not that we can leave it at this point in our culture, but it is also important to take care of your health. And being aware of how you're positioning your body day in, day out, and establishing certain small habits, which could be just like stepping away from your desk station every 30 to 60 minutes, right? It's as simple as that. And that just improves your posture because now your muscles are not tense in the same position again and again.
Yeah, I love that. I used to have an alarm on my phone to remind me, okay, it's time to get up.
Yeah, that's really good one, because that's one of the things I tell my clients, that, you know, you always have your phone by your side, you know,
Yeah.
ideally you do while you're working. So it's easy to do that. Or there are apps out there too that you can download on your desktop and they would ping, and you can set the interval for yourself, any kind of movement that you like, it would actually ping you for that movement. Okay, go up the stairs, like, you know, staircase once or twice, or do 10 squats, or hold a plank. Well, everybody likes to hold a plank, right?
I love that. I want to talk a little bit about your book, Unhunched. Can you share a little bit around common myths about posture and how your book seeks to address these myths?
Yes, that's a very good question, because I feel like this is something a lot of people don't know, but there are people do come to me, my clients come to me with a lot of myths and assumptions about posture, which aren't true. And the first one is that having this perfect rigid posture is what we should be aiming for. And whenever I tell someone I'm a posture coach, as soon as I walk into the room and say that, people just sit or stand straight. They look like robots to me. I'm like, okay, well, how long can you hold this position, right? So there are some general guidelines for finding a comfortable, supportive posture. You know, if we look at the desk-bound professionals, people who are working mostly on the computers, which is most of us, is like keeping your screen at eye level, not leaning forward too much, keeping your feet flat on the ground while sitting. But we are all built differently. And what we need is to find a natural posture which is comfortable for us and in which we can move optimally without pain. And for that, you have to, you know, ideally, you want to work with a movement specialist or a physical therapist to find out what that positioning is for you. And because having a rigid posture, you can probably keep it for like maybe 2 to 3 minutes, but next thing you know, you'll be slumping back in. But if you knew what your body needs while you're working and you have your desk set up evaluated by a professional, then now and also they will also help you develop some good habits that you can by which you can adopt your natural posture. Then you have a full picture, a big solution in which you're trying to find your natural posture. And what is your natural posture? It is the most optimal body position in which your body can fight the forces of gravity optimally. So with least resistance. Yes. So it's all about gravity, because gravity is always working on us. Just like, we know from Newtonian law that, the apple falls from the tree because gravity is working on it. So gravity is working on each and every joint in your body. It's working on your spine. It's working on your body as a whole. And so the way you sit, stand, walk, move, squat, that natural posture would be in which the force of gravity is minimal on your body.
Interesting. I've never thought about it in that way. I love that tip. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. And then the second one that people also come to me with is like, okay, now that I know my right posture, it's like, I'm just going to stay there. Right. And that's a myth too, because of course, yes, staying there for a short period of time is realistic, but after that, it becomes uncomfortable and you're going to come out of it. And the next thing you know, you're going to slouch and slump. So when people tell me that, okay, they are experiencing pain, especially in a certain position, that tells me that they hold that position for a very prolonged period of time and they're not moving enough. Our bodies are built to move. They're designed to move around, right? We are leg-based animals, if you look at it. And since we are sitting in one position all the time, this unnatural posture that we have assumed, which is a hunched over posture, is due to that. So the goal of a good posture program is to find the position that you can stay in for some time, like let's say 30 minutes, which is the ideal time we know, and then break out of that position, take regular movement breaks, come back to it. Another way I tell my clients to have your natural posture is to stand up and stretch, do some stretching exercises. And stretches could be so simple. It could be just reaching your arms up in the air for a deep breath and then coming down. But whatever takes you out of that typing position, right? That's what we should be doing.
I love that.
Yeah, these are the two most common myths, but I don't want to have your show be an hour or 2 hours because I could go on.
Well, there's also a resource, your book, right? So your book, I'm sure people can go a lot more in depth into improving their posture and making these little changes within time.
Exactly. The book is available on Amazon, and the listeners and viewers can easily access it at this time.
That's incredible. How can someone start building a daily routine that prioritizes good posture, especially if you're working long hours at a desk?
Yeah, so it's not as hard. It is a habit building process, of course, like anything else. You do want to develop a habit of practicing certain things. And the first one, my go-to, is to perform slow abdominal breathing exercises, because all it takes is like 3 minutes tops, and you're going to take around 8 to 10 breaths in that time. And if you can bookend your days with slow abdominal breathing, either on the floor, I love it when people can get on the floor, like they have a yoga mat at their office or their home office, and they can just have their backs flat on the floor, because now you're not fighting gravity, because our breathing muscles also fight gravity. And part of the reason why we have shallow breathing is because we are fighting gravity. So when we are in that 0G position down on the floor, we're not fighting gravity. And we will be able to perform slow abdominal breathing exercises most effectively and most efficiently. So if you can do that, bookend your days for 3 minutes, get down on the floor on a yoga mat and perform slow abdominal breathing, which could be, just taking slow breaths so that you're expanding your abdominal cavity and then emptying out your lungs fully. It's simple as that. That's first one. Second is prioritize taking movement breaks. And I know it is difficult because I'm a writer too. I'm a freelance writer and I'm an author of the book. So when I was especially when I was writing the book, I felt like I was getting into this flow and I didn't want to break my flow. But and a lot of my clients have the same issue. But what I noticed myself and my clients have noticed too, that when we do take movement breaks every 30 minutes, actually we come back refreshed. We have better ideas and we can get back into that flow state easier. The first time it takes a little bit of time, like, the first hour of the day. But after that, you are still in that flow state because your brain is still processing the project that you're working on. And when you step away, you actually come back refreshed and with better ideas. So prioritize taking movement breaks. And if you are in a job, like one of my clients works at a lab, and she can't step away from her lab desk, then switch your positions often. Like change your position from sitting to standing every 30 minutes. Or even when you're standing, you can fidget. When you're sitting, you can fidget, maybe just move your legs more often. Especially when you're standing, you can step side to side. Those are all the options you have. And that leads to better posture. And one of the final tips would be that learn to distribute your weight evenly, front and back and side to side, because we always have a side that we favor. Like for me, it's my left leg. And I, when I'm going out and shopping and I'm waiting in the line for the checkout, I normally now see it all the time that people have one dominant leg because they have all their weight on like their left or right side, and then the other knee is bent, right? And so the thing is, we are doing that even when we are sitting. So they are sitting, when we are sitting, we don't realize it, but we have more pressure on that side of our hip. And that leads to muscle imbalances and poor posture.
It's so true because I've noticed that about myself over the last few months. And I'm like, what is it? I also favor my left side. I'm like, what is it about this? So I'm trying to rebalance that, but it's really hard. But I think you're right. It's all about the mindfulness and maybe setting those alarms or having a way to okay, every 30 minutes, recentering yourself or switching up your position. That's really important. I know there was a time in my life where I was consciously trying to do that. Instead of 30 minutes, though, I think I was doing 90 minutes. Every 90 minutes, I would do that. And you're right, the inspiration and the new ways of seeing things, like the perspective would change a lot. I felt a lot more open. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah. So these are some very easy ways. Of course, you have to be mindful, just like you said, about it. But these are simple habits you can develop. And not only that, especially about breathing. And if you're changing your position, in my book, I recommended having a floor desk at home if you can. We're losing our connection with Mother Earth. And that's a big aspect of losing our posture and becoming hunched over. So when you drop down on the floor, either for your breathing exercises or you're sitting in a crouched position or crisscross position on the floor, you're actually grounding yourself, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your virtual fitness platform and, the toning and the strengthening. How do you integrate posture education into that broader context of like fitness and well-being?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So, because I all these habits are awesome, but the foundation of a good posture is having a body that can support it. So all my programs are based on strengthening the proper postural muscles and addressing the muscle imbalances that we see mostly in desk-bound professionals, or somebody could be. I had a client who is a truck driver and spends a lot of time, again, in a seated position, but behind the wheel. So my programs focus on having strong abdominal and back muscles, and flexibility of tight muscles like the chest and shoulder muscles, which we overuse when we are seated, and with working with our arms extended in front of us, and strengthening of weak muscles, which are mostly our glutes and the mid back muscles, so my clients can have a balanced body for life. Another way I help to improve posture is with weight loss. Uh, well, we talked about our digestive system, and as you heard before too, that with a hunched posture comes that abdominal fat, right? Which is the visceral fat, which is the fat on your organs, which you don't want actually. So we call it like the fat around your gut region. So we know that today, 2 out of 3 Americans are either overweight and obese. And a lot of it has to do with our sedentary lifestyle and the posture that we hold. So extra weight weakens your abdominal muscles and causes then problems for our pelvis region and then spine, contributing to low back pain, neck pain, and all the other issues that we see. So I also offer weight loss nutrition coaching as well. So those are a few ways I help my clients to have a good foundation, a body which can support a good posture for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I love that, because what I have found in my own journey is that it's never just one thing, whether I'm trying to heal trauma or my gut issues, they're all interconnected. And so by looking at it a lot more holistically in the way that you do with your clients, it's not just about the eating, but it's also about the strengthening and the toning and the fitness, but also let's take a look at the gut, or let's take a look at the posture. And then I love what you mentioned earlier about like having a professional coming and looking at your space and making it a lot more optimal. So it's not just like a one and done. It's about a holistic picture of what it's all contributing, to your posture, which is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we all have different lifestyles. We all have unique bodies, right? I look at people's muscle imbalances as it pertains to them. We just talked about, okay, we both favor our left side, but I also see people who favor their right side. I've also seen people who have a habit of keeping their head like this. And I sometimes do that too, but not for a long period of time. But what it causes is like their one shoulder elevates, especially people who are heavy mouse users, or joystick users, right? They have very elevated shoulders. And that is actually a sign of, if we look at it with a mental health perspective, that's a sign of anxiety. So, so we all have so many different lifestyles. We have unique bodies. And I think working with a professional, either myself or someone else who is local to the listeners and the viewers, is going to help them figure out like exactly that customized solution for them.
Yeah. Where are you located, by the way?
I am in Philadelphia, greater Philadelphia region, and I
Okay.
also work sometimes in greater New York area. So yeah,
Awesome.
both
Good
the
to know for our listeners if they're looking for a posture coach or a fitness coach,
yeah.
to help them on their way. I wanted to delve a little bit deeper on, the way that we feel in terms of our posture. So we had mentioned, you mentioned a little bit ago about how people kind of tilt their heads, or even in the beginning about like protecting their hearts. We even mentioned about self-confidence. Can you delve a little bit more into this connection of how we feel about ourselves and maybe explain how posture influences that self-image and interaction with others?
Yeah, so an upright and open posture, as you can imagine, definitely, somebody who has an upright open posture walks into the room. What does it tell you about them? That, well, they're confident, they're assertive, and that's the kind of aura we want to have as we walk into the room. So there is a very famous TED Talk by Dr. Amy Cuddy. She's the professor and researcher from Harvard Business School, and she studied the psychological effects of body language. And what she noticed was that that we know that our minds change our bodies, but our bodies change our minds too, which includes confidence. And her work shows that the expansive posture, which means having an open chest, head up high, where you're not looking down, looking up, produce hormones which promote confidence. So what are those hormones that we are talking about? The researchers found that elevated testosterone and decreased cortisol, which is the stress hormone, was found in the study participants who had an unhunched posture. Whereas the participants in the study who had a slumped, slouched posture with their heart closed and their gaze down, their hormonal levels were reversed. So they had low testosterone, which is a power hormone, and increased levels of cortisol in their bloodstream. And they found this is very interesting, and something I hope sticks with the listeners, is that they found these changes happened in 2 minutes. 2 minutes of a slumped posture can increase your cortisol levels by 25% and decrease your testosterone levels. However, on the other end, having an upright posture and an expansive posture for 2 minutes can lead to elevated testosterone, which you want, and decreased cortisol. So that's what the real physiologic connection is of our posture with our confidence. So an unhunched posture is all about like sparking physiologic changes that will make you look more confident and give that aura of confidence when you are talking to people, when you have these social situations where of course you want to appear confident.
Oh my God, that is incredible. I love these tidbits that you're giving us, because 2 minutes, that is absolutely doable. I mean, if you're feeling, and the thing that came to mind is like everything is energy, right? And we can change our energy simply by changing our posture for a mere 2 minutes and changing the chemistry of our being. That's incredible.
Yeah, I know, right? And 2 minutes, right? You're walking in to give a presentation, or maybe you're on a podcast interview like me. It takes 2 minutes to get over your nerves.
Yeah.
So practice, we call it the power posing, and
Yeah.
it's known in the media as power posing. So can you have that power pose?
Yeah.
Maybe you have your arms, up,
Yep.
like you just want to raise, or maybe just have your hands on your hips, like the what is it called, Wonder Woman, right? Right.
Yeah, that's so funny.
But exactly. But can you do that every 30 minutes while you're sitting? Stand up and have that pose. That's it. That's your stretch right there. You don't need to do anything else, and you'll have a more open and expansive posture, because what you're doing is you're opening your chest and you're, dropping your shoulders down and back. And that's exactly what we want you to do.
Yeah, I love that. Anytime I'm going to give a presentation or I'm getting ready to be in front of a large group of people, that's exactly what I do. I make myself really big, and it does give me that confidence. I didn't know I needed to do it for 2 minutes. So that extra tidbit of information will help me a lot in the future. And, I even thought about, like, I don't know if you've watched Ted Lasso. It's a series on Apple TV. One of the women in there, the main boss, she talks about, I think in season 1 or season 2, she talks about how whenever she's really nervous or really scared about a presentation or somewhere she needs to be, she makes herself really big. And this is a gorgeous, beautiful woman that owns a football team, right? Like it doesn't look like she needs any more confidence, but the fact that she describes that and what she was talking about was exactly that power pose. So I really love how we're kind of seeing that in mainstream media as well.
Yeah, exactly. So your upright posture necessarily is also an unhunched posture is where where you have more space, right? You're consuming more space. And when you consume more space, that right away is first, it also increases your trustworthiness. And second, assertiveness, which of course is directly related to your confidence and how you're appearing to people.
I love that. Great.
And we can all use it. I love your example. I haven't watched the show, but I love your example of that show and the guest on the show being very influential, but she still feels that she needs it, right? Before going into a high stakes situation. And we all do. So that's the thing. It's very normal to feel nervous. It's very normal to feel like to doubt yourself at times like these, but all it takes to have an unhunched posture and have the power pose before you go in.
I love it. I wanted to circle back on the breathing and the posture connection. So breathing is a sacred art in many traditions, as we know. How does posture impact our breathing? I know you touched on this earlier, but I wanted to delve a little bit deeper around how can improved breathing patterns further enhance that posture?
Yeah, so in order to go a little bit deeper into the breathing and posture connection, I want our listeners and our viewers to do another little exercise. And all that I'm going to ask you to do is to place your hands under your ribs. So you can probably feel your ribs, right? And right under your ribs, place your hands and cough. So cough. So you'll feel a muscle that with your fingertips. And that muscle is your diaphragm. So now that diaphragm is a magic breathing muscle because it does most of the work, which people feel like it's always the lungs. Lungs are important, but diaphragm is even more so. Because if we cannot expand our diaphragm, it can't reach our spine. Mm-hmm. And when the diaphragm doesn't expand fully and doesn't reach the spine, then the spine keeps on compressing. And we don't want our spine to compress. We want an elongated, extended spine most of our life, right? Mm-hmm. So with each breath, and we take 22,000 breaths a day. So we have 22,000 chances to elongate the spine and reduce the stress too. Honestly, like, having the slow diaphragmatic breathing, it de-stresses you. And I'm going to come back to the de-stressing portion of it. But it increases the space between these spinal discs now, right, in your spine. And what does that do? That helps to reduce tension all throughout your body. Because now your spine is so optimally aligned to support the rest of your body.
Yeah.
Right? So diaphragmatic breathing can improve our functional posture by increasing our spine's ability to twist, bend, to be able to move better, and then also hold ourselves upright. So right away, if you take care of your breathing pattern or work on your breathing pattern, you will see a lot of difference in your posture because now you are reinforcing that spine's natural curves through 22,000 breaths, right? Simple. Now, let's talk about stress. When we are stressed out, we are not going to have optimal posture. So stress is like a two-way street with the posture because if you have a hunched over posture, you are going to be stressed. And then if you have stress, your posture is going to be hunched over. And to reduce stress, one of the first things you can do, and the basic things you can do, is diaphragmatic breathing. Why? Because when you breathe fully, you're massaging your vagus nerve. So there are a lot of vagus nerve endings under our diaphragm, which you felt when you coughed. So that muscle that you coughed and felt has a lot of vagus nerve endings under your diaphragm. So now the vagus nerve is responsible for activating our parasympathetic nervous system. I know these are like many scientific terms, but here's what it is. It's your Zen room of the body. So the Zen room of your body is called parasympathetic nervous system, which relaxes you, which takes you into the rest and digestion mode. Another reason why we don't digest food properly is because we are always in the sympathetic nervous system. We have our sympathetic nervous system activated when we are in a hunched over posture. But when you're breathing properly and you have an upright open posture, you have your parasympathetic nervous system activated, which is your rest and relax and digestive mode system, where you want to be most of the time. Some stress is okay, short periods of time. You go through stress, which is okay. It's actually even positive, but then you come out of it and you stay in the parasympathetic form for the most time. And that's where we want you to be. And how can you get there? You have 22,000 chances a day. Simple. Take deep diaphragmatic breaths to elongate your spine and to de-stress, because as soon as the vagus nerve, when your diaphragm expands and hits the vagus nerve, it's going to tell your brain, oh, it's okay, you can relax. Don't worry about that email from your boss. You can handle it. So that's the bigger connection.
I love that. Can you explain a little bit what diaphragmatic breath means? Like, can you just walk us through a couple of breaths so people can?
Yeah. Especially for viewers, it's easy. And listeners, if you are somewhere, if you are driving, especially behind the wheels, please park your car, or maybe you can do this later. But place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. And inhale through your nose till you feel your belly expand like a balloon. And then exhale all the air out through your mouth. Inhale again. Expanding your belly, really letting it go out. Feel it massaging your spine. And then exhale through your mouth. And one last time here, try to give some space in between your inhale and exhale this time to hold. So inhale fully and hold for 2 seconds. And then exhale through your mouth and hold for 2 seconds. And release your hands. And you can do this around 5 to 6 times a day.
Wow, you can really feel that massage once you called it out. I was like, oh yeah, I kind of feel it there in my spine.
Yeah, you can feel your lower back, muscles activated when you really expand your diaphragm. Yeah.
So I'm really curious because a lot of people have gone remote when it comes to work, right? So with that shift of remote working, what are some unique challenges and opportunities when it comes to maintaining good posture in a home environment?
Yeah, so this is, again, a two-way street because my clients, the reason I wrote this book, honestly, was because of the shift I saw after COVID.
Makes sense.
Of people working from home. And my clients were coming to me with all sorts of pain. Shoulder pain, plantar fasciitis, which is for your feet, ankle instability, lower back pain. And I was like, what just happened? Like, why did the cases increase so much right after like 6 months of COVID? I had so many clients coming to me with pain. And when I would take their history, I would find out that they were working on the couch, they were working in their beds, And I totally understand, like working from home allows you to do that. That if that's how you feel like, you want to be relaxed and that's how you want to work, fine. But it does impact your postural health. It impacts your spine. It impacts your joints.
Mhm.
So, and another thing was like some people didn't have a dedicated space, like a home office space. So people were working from their kitchen counters. Again, the kitchen counter might not be at the right height for you.
Mhm.
So there are many ways that if you are working from home, you can protect your posture. One of the things is to invest in a good, of course, adjustable desk, height adjustable desk. And I don't recommend spending, way too much money to go and buy like a hydraulic desk or whatnot. There are sit to stand desk converters that you can find on Amazon, and it is in the resource section of my book as well. I've recommended a couple of brands, but you guys go with whatever brand you like, which can change your current desk or your countertop to a standing or sitting desk. So now you can easily adjust your, desktop or your laptop's height. Second thing that I highly recommend doing if you're working from home is to take breaks. Because I know that the workload has increased for people who are working from home. I've heard that from many of my clients, but setting healthy boundaries is also part of being a healthy individual. And maybe that means requesting a 10-minute break every hour, or making up that time later, but move. We are built to move. And I know when we're at home, it becomes even harder to step away from the computer. Another opportunity that work from home provides a lot of people, and I hope a lot of people took it, is to work out regularly, because now you are not commuting as often, right? So make sure that you have at least 40 to 45 minutes daily set aside for some kind of movement therapy. Maybe it's Tai Chi, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's Pilates on the low resistance end of the spectrum, or maybe it's a boot camp, or maybe it's a CrossFit class. Like, I don't know what you like. Maybe it's running. I'm a runner. I mean, for me, I ran so many miles while I was during COVID when I was working from home the whole time. So I don't know what it is, but use that time that you were using for commute at least one way towards more movement, towards building a better foundation, because it's all about your foundation. So those are a few ways, easy ways that you can do. Again, it comes down to movement and also having, of course, a better setup.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I love that you mentioned all of the spectrums of ways to move. I was like, yep, I do Tai Chi or Qigong, because there's no way you'll get me into a boot camp.
And that's the thing. The movement doesn't, or exercise doesn't have to be one thing for everyone. Yeah. I mean, some of my clients love Qigong, and then there are some clients, they're like, we cannot step into a Qigong class. Although I disagree, because they need it. They are the ones who need it the most. But okay, if you're a CrossFit person, well, make sure you are going to CrossFit class regularly.
Right.
And also some form of flexibility, because it's just like you said, I think earlier in our call today, like it's not one thing that actually leads to better health or a better or even a better posture. It's a combination. So are you really looking at yourself, or are you working with a coach who's going to look at you holistically and give you all the solutions?
Exactly.
Because flexibility is a big part of it. Mobility is a big part of it. And then breathing, as we saw, is a big part of it, right? De-stressing is a big part of it. And then also strengthening your muscles, which would include some kind of resistance training, right? All of this is a big part of it. So all of this comes together. And of course, we don't know everything ourselves, and it's always a good idea to reach out to someone who can help you with
Yeah. I
that.
find it so interesting that you just mentioned mobility, because that's actually what I'm looking for right now is a coach or someone that can, give me a program around mobility, because I'm trying to improve my mobility, because that's the next thing on my list.
I'm so glad to hear that, really, because people don't realize that the range of motion, which is your mobility, it affects everything, which includes your posture, of course.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to take a little bit of a time to kind of discuss your book. Can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek? What can people expect out of your book?
Oh, there is so much. There's so much goodness in the book. But you will find a lot of tips on better posture, of course. And the first section of my book actually talks about what posture is, because we talked about posture and its connection to gravity, and a lot of people don't have that connection. So you'll find that. Then I also delve into the history of posture, how we became unhunched, and why it is so important for the survival of our species to have this upright posture. A lot of anthropologists have been studying this for years now. So I have interviews with a couple of anthropologists in my book, which you'll find very, insightful. And then I also looked at the wisdom of the ancient postures. Like I talk about the yogic practices of the Indus Valley civilization, of the Greek civilization, and how exercise was so important to them, and the Egyptian civilization even. Why did they prefer upright posture? If we look at their hieroglyphics, you'll see that they all have like a nice upright spine, no matter if they're working or they're sitting on their thrones. So you have to see, like, there is wisdom in those ancient postures. And even today in the indigenous populations, we see that they are preserving an upright posture. Some of the indigenous tribes haven't heard of, they don't know what lower back pain is. This is in today's world. So, but then they move a lot, right? They're always moving. And even when they're resting, they're down on the floor. And those down on the floor resting positions are so much better than sitting on a chair, just because they are active resting positions. So they activate the full range of motion. First, your knee and hips go through the full range of motion for mobility, and also your muscles are active. So you'll find all of that. And then the second part and the third part delves into my brace posture correction model, which is breathing, B for breath, R for relaxation, A for activity, and C for corrective exercise. And corrective exercise is to correct the muscle imbalances. So I talk about that. So there's a lot of stuff in there, and it's all about posture and how it connects to our well-being as a whole.
Incredible. I look forward to reading that. Just curious, is it on Audible yet?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, it's coming out on September 8th. That's the goal date I have, but it's coming out in September.
That's awesome. I know a lot of my listeners always ask me, is it on Audible?
Yeah. I just recorded it like a couple of weeks ago, and now it's being edited, and then I'll upload it, and it will be available on Audible and other audiobook platforms too.
Awesome. Congrats. Okay, we're going to be looking out for that.
Thank you.
And then where can people find you? Can you tell us, like, are you on social? Do you have a website? Can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah. So I am very active on LinkedIn, and you can find me with my name, Aesha Tahir. You can also find my business social Instagram, which is tone_and_strengthen. Or you can connect me with my author website, aeshatahir.com, or toneandstrengthen.com for my business. So yeah, most of the platforms I'm aeshatahir.com, and on LinkedIn, I'm very active. So if you message me or email me, I'll be able to respond back.
Awesome. And I'm going to link all of that down below to make it really easy for everyone. Thank you
Awesome.
so much for coming on here and sharing your wisdom with us. Such incredible nuggets of wisdom. I loved having you on. I know that I will definitely be checking out your book to learn more, and I would love to have you back on in the future.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun having this conversation with you, and I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Absolutely. For all of our listeners, thank you so much for listening in. Give us a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you comment down below, I will actually give away one of the copies of Unhunched by Aesha. So go ahead and comment down below. Let us know what you think of this episode, and I will announce the winner come September 10th. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week ahead, and we will see you next time.